Welcome back to Against the Pods for our last episode of Season 1, Episode 6. And today we are joined by former Newcastle, Sheffield Wednesday and Sheffield United footballer, Karl Colley.
Hi, mate.
How are you, bro? You all right?
Good, thank you.
I feel like this has been coming a while, hasn't it?
It has, mate, it has.
I think me and you started talking about a year ago, didn't we, I think? Something like that.
Yeah.
Because we were both in the similar sort of space in what we're trying to achieve with sort of addiction awareness and stuff like that. So yeah, thank you very much for coming in. You were telling us before we started that you've had a busy few weeks, mate, driving around the country.
Yeah, back on tools, obviously. Trying to get some money in to do the projects I want to do, but obviously to get by as well.
Yeah.
From starting again.
Yeah.
Early this year. So yeah, support the family and everything like that. So back on the tools, yeah.
Fair play, mate. You got to do what you got to do, ain't you?
Yeah.
Top man, and like I said, bro, we appreciate you
no
making the
problem.
journey and coming over to us today. In terms of a starting point, this is probably one of them pods where I've been like, when I was doing my prep throughout the week, I was thinking, where do we start with this? Because you've got podcasts out there in the minute that have been, some of them have been quite a big hit as well.
Yeah.
Particularly the Under the Cosh one, which we were talking about earlier, which I thought was fascinating. But I thought a good starting point might be school, because we've started at secondary school with a few other guests. So can you give us an insight to what your education was like at secondary school? How were you in school? Was the plan to be a footballer or?
Yeah, I mean, when I went to secondary school, I just signed for Rotherham United. And I just signed a 4-year deal up to 16, which took me on to like YTS and that. It was always the goal to stay at Rotherham and get to 16. So that obviously coincided with my school years as well. But at school, they were kind of a jealousy with teachers, PE teachers, stuff like that, because they were like, one were about 24, 25 at that time. He fancied himself as a footballer. He obviously didn't make it. He was playing semi-professional. And he just didn't like me because obviously I was doing well at football with Rotherham. And then at 14 and 15, I got picked to go with England. So I went away with England. I had to have time off school, which then teachers were turning their nose up at it and stuff like that. So my school years were a bit funny because I enjoyed going to school, but it was just more for banter and see lads and play football. We had
Not for your education. It was,
not really, because I was set what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And all the feedback I was getting from Rotherham and how well I was doing, that's what I was destined to do. So I weren't a thick lad, but I was more just wanting to have a good time, you know, have a laugh, basically.
Do you think that might have played a part into why the teachers didn't like you?
Probably, yeah. But I weren't a bad lad. I weren't disruptive, as in, you know, getting other people to be disruptive or things like that. I was just football mad. And around that era back then, everybody were football mad. But it was just, it were a funny time, school, because how well I was doing away from school with football. Every time I got to school, it were kind of like, they were putting me down about it. The head teacher said that he'd stop me from playing football altogether because he knew somebody at Rotherham if I didn't book my ideas up and stuff like that. Which then I used to go home and tell my dad, and my dad just like, "Nah, you're all right. Don't listen to him. Just carry on what you're doing." But towards the end of like 15, 16, I used to like just assigning at school for the last period in the afternoon, just because we got a football match. So because we had a good, successful football team, because so the lads who I played with in my year, they were at different clubs as well. So when we come together at school, I think we lost once in 5 years.
Right.
In the last year, we did the National Cup, and we got to quarter final. So we were very successful, but it got to a point where I was signing in last period at like 2:30.
Yeah.
Doing last period till 3 o'clock, like I'd been there all day. And I used to just walk to school with a pair of boots, not like a pencil case or a bag. I just walked with a pair of boots, knowing for a fact we'd got a school game after school, basically. But at teachers, I'd been there all day. So it was just stuff like that, yeah. So I weren't, like I say, I weren't thick. I enjoyed school, but I just knew what I was doing. I mean, I saw a career advisor the last couple of months of school, and they just laughed at me when I said I'm going to be a footballer. They just said, "No, something realistic." Right. I said, "No, I'm going to be a footballer," and they just laughed it off, like, basically.
But given obviously how good you were and you signed for Rotherham, why wasn't it sinking in for the school that you could potentially make it?
I think it was just that era. How many times have they heard people at school saying I'm going to be a footballer?
Was there quite a few who were signed to academies and stuff like that at your school?
They were, yeah. I don't think any of them believed in themselves like I did. And then obviously with me going away with England, which were unknown. Like, especially being picked from Rotherham, because Rotherham were in 4th division at the time. So to be picked from Rotherham, it was like, wow. Do you know what I mean? So I was going away with like lads from Newcastle, Middlesbrough, Leeds, Man City, Man United, Chelsea, Arsenal. You know what I mean? And I'm saying, they're saying, where are you from? I'm like, Rotherham. Where? Never heard of it. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So it was, them years were good years, to be honest. They were like shaping me up to do what I wanted to do.
And in terms of your exposure to gambling at school, so obviously well underage to be gambling in secondary school, but was there were you gambling underage when you were at school? Were you exposed to gambling from a young age?
Not really. I think the only thing we used to do at school were tinks.
Right.
Closest to the wall. With dinner money and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But a mate of mine, who's a very good friend of mine still, we used to be in the same class, but he used to read racing. He used to buy paper at dinner. Yeah. This is like 14, 15. He used to read racing.
Never had a bet.
Yeah, just a form. Just get racing bit and just read that. And I'd just like laughing because I just think, well, he's like an old man. Do you know what I mean? But he'd study it, and I'd never had a clue about it. So it didn't really interest me then, back then.
And then as soon as you leave school, what happens for you then? Because you left at 16.
Left at 16, yeah.
So there was you didn't go to college. Were you picked up straight away by Sheffield Wednesday?
No. So at 16, Rotherham, I had a bus stop at Rotherham, and what it were at 15, they had sold new management come in. So it was like an academy. Well, it weren't an academy then; it was a school of excellence. Okay. The year after, they turned everything into academies. But the word is school of excellence. So they changed all the managements from 18s down to 12s. And a guy called John Bilton coming from Leeds. Same as football, he just didn't fancy me. He just didn't think what he wanted basically. And we played Port Vale away, and Billy Painter, who used to play for Port Vale, who had a decent career to be honest. I played against him, and the ball got played over the top, and I slid in like last ditch tackle. Anyway, he managed to get past me and slot it in bottom corner. And as I was sat on the floor pulling my socks up, he walked past me and just tapped me up back at head. So I kind of like lost my head, got up, chased him round the pitch, which everybody were just like, what's he doing? And then John Bilton basically stood there and like pointed finger, having a go at me, like really bad. So my dad walked round the pitch, basically, and just said, don't ever talk to him like that again. I want him released. He's not staying here. I want him released, basically. So what Rotherham did is they released me really late when everybody else had took the YTs on in the area. So like Sheffield Wednesday, Sheffield United, Chesterfield, Barnsley, Doncaster Rovers, they'd all took everybody on.
YTs being an old school version of your first year scholars or apprentices. Yeah.
So they basically just did it on purpose. We thought, well, we'll release him late. It took ages for me to release him. Yeah. Everybody else had took their players, kind of to do me over, basically. So then when that happened and the release happened, I went to Sheffield United. I played a couple of games for them.
And you were a Sheffield United fan as well?
Sheffield United supporter. So that were a big thing. Played a reserve game, 45 minutes for the reserves at 16 as well. Did really well. And Sheffield United turned around and said, you're good, but we can't see you improving. Right. And I think more it was more financial. Is that because they took the YTs on? Yeah. So the day after they told me I weren't good enough, basically, they rang my dad up and said, look, we've had a think about it. We can offer him something, but we can't pay him. So it's like an extended schoolboy. Right. So basically, you'll come train, clean boots, do everything what a YT does, but you're not getting paid. So my dad was like, well, that's not happening. No. Thank you very much, but no. Yeah. So then he moved me to Chesterfield, played in reserves for them at Darlington, did really well. Same thing, we can offer you extended YT, but no, you can't be paid. While I was at Chesterfield, there was Keith Alexander at Ilkeston Town, who watched me play and said, look, I'm manager of Ilkeston Town in Dr. Martin Premier, I think it were there.
Oh yeah, I remember that, Dr. Martin's Premier.
And he says, would you sign for us? So I went down, I'm obviously still 16, and I signed. Now, funny enough, when obviously I got picked up for Wednesday from Ilkeston, I played about 5 reserve games for him. So I didn't even play a first team game. So we were pre-season, played 5 reserve games, and Wednesday signed me from there. But Wednesday got me on a technicality because Keith Alexander had signed me on adult forms. Right. And I was still only 16. So Ilkeston were demanding money when Sheffield Wednesday come in for me. And Sheffield Wednesday did some digging and found out that they'd signed me on wrong form, so they got me for free, basically. Keith Alexander weren't happy about it because he thought we were going to get a few quid, like.
Yeah. And for Ilkeston, that'd have been a big thing.
Yeah,
as well,
but more for himself, because
Right.
my dad found out that Leicester City wanted to sign me, and they were offering him 10 grand to get him for me to sign for them.
Really?
Yeah, so I think he were going to be out of pocket, so that's why
Right.
he got face on like.
Makes more sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, so I think in the end Wednesday just said we'll play your pre-season.
Right.
You
You
know,
have
get some
gate
gate
receipts and that,
receipts
yeah,
and get
yeah,
some
yeah.
money back. So that's what happened. So so then I signed for Wednesday. I was training there for about 6 weeks, and then my birthday was in October. So they said, look, we're not going to give you a YT. We're just going to give you a pro contract at 17 on your 17th birthday.
How are you feeling about that?
Well, I was buzzing, to be honest. But one, I just signed for Wednesday, which is the rivals.
Yeah.
But again, even though they are, and obviously my history with them later on down in life, I couldn't wait to sign for Wednesday because they are a big club.
Yeah.
And the rivalry just kind of went out at window.
Yeah.
And my dad always said, listen, forget Wednesday. I mean, Dad's a blade, like, but my dad said, look, forget about United Wednesday. They're a big club. They're giving you a pro contract.
Yeah.
Don't turn your nose up at this.
Yeah.
So, and I said, no, I'll sign. And then from then, it was just a snowball effect, how well I were doing. So I've gone from like the 17s, 19s, reserves, fringe at first team in like 3 months.
Fucking hell.
So everything was just happening so fast. So obviously after that, when I went to Newcastle that season, at the end of that season, from going from like Dr. Martin's Premier to Premier League within like 12 months. So it was just out of control kind of thing, how well I were doing.
And the Newcastle thing again. So you're at Wednesday playing youth football at first, then reserve football, and then how did Newcastle come in for you? Like, how did they know about you?
Newcastle I played against Newcastle 6 times that season. I think 5 or 6 times.
Oh, yeah, 'cause
I
you
played
went up
all
the
different
Euston,
levels.
yeah.
Like
of course,
17s,
yeah,
twice
yeah.
for 17s, twice for 19s, twice for reserves or something like that.
Yeah.
So obviously they'd seen a lot of me. But Newcastle were my second team growing up, funny enough.
Right.
So obviously Sheffield United were first and foremost, but my dad used to buy me Sheffield United kits and everything, but my nan and granddad, I used to ask them to get me Newcastle kits.
Right.
But Newcastle were like Shearer, Ferdinand, Ginola,
Yeah.
Asprilla, all that. So they were my second team. So then for them to come in for me, it was like, no, I'm signing for Newcastle United.
And what year are we talking you signed for Newcastle?
2002 season, I think it was.
Wow.
Yeah, Bobby Robson.
That must have been mental.
Yeah, it was.
I think you described it on another podcast, and similarly enough, we've had 2 other pros on. We had Stephen Coulter on and Mitch Clark. It was released from Accrington a couple of years back for similar gambling offences to Ivan Toney, the E8 rule and breaking the offences against the regulation. And they both said for them, that first move away, theirs was both a loan move, but it didn't put them in good stead for the future in terms of gambling.
Yeah.
I think I got from one of your pods that you said you felt like you were just lost in a big city moving to Newcastle.
Yeah, that was my coping mechanism, because the bookmakers reminded me of home, because obviously I've been used to my dad leaving me outside the bookies for years on end growing up. And I saw my dad's addiction as well, because my dad's got an addiction.
And I just want to, I know, sorry to cut in, but how many people can you think of that come from an older generation that would never say they've got a gambling addiction, but you know they have because they gamble that much, but it's always been normal to them.
Yeah.
It hasn't been looked at. Do you agree with that, or do you think?
Yeah, I think the kind of attitude back then is, well, I've earned so much.
Yeah.
I give the missus that.
Yeah.
That's mine.
Yeah.
And kind of the woman's attitude was, well, that's yours. Once that's gone, it's gone.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like, just do what I want with my money. That kind of attitude, that old school attitude. And I can say that from like my granddad, my uncles, stuff like that. It's like, pay the bills, give the wife that, deal with the housekeeping, whatever, and this is mine.
Yeah.
To my own device, I can do what I want with it, basically. So I think that that gambling attitude was, well, it's mine, I'll do what I want. But then obviously when you then, and I saw with my dad, is then when money's going missing, or it's less money getting paid to my mum for bills, stuff like that, which I saw a lot of it growing up.
Did you notice all this at a young age?
I noticed it, but obviously I didn't identify it as a problem, or my dad having a problem, or an addiction. Later on in life, as I was gambling and doing the same things myself, it's then realisation is like, wow, I've watched all that growing up, and it comes to you then. And not only that, I spoke to my mum and dad are not together now, but I spoke to my mum about it, and she's just said, like, you've done everything your dad's done.
Yeah.
There's nothing any different you've done to your dad. Any excuses about where money's been or where money's gone? You know, you've been mugged at cash machine, you've not been paid, you've everything.
Yeah.
I've used every excuse under the sun. And my mum says, well, I've heard them all before because I've heard them off your dad, basically.
Yeah.
But again, you know, I went to Sporting Chance. And there was an opportunity for my dad to like open up about his gambling as well.
Yeah.
So I sat on a sofa in my mum and dad's house because Peter Kay from Sporting Chance come up to like do an assessment on me because my dad had contacted the PFA and said, look, I think things are getting a bit bad with my son. So
Is this when you're at Newcastle, or was this?
No,
after?
this is when I'd just been. I'd been sacked off Sheffield United at this point, so probably playing non-league.
So a couple of years down the
I think
line.
I were at Kettering,
Right,
Town. So basically, he says, look, some guy's coming to see you called Peter Kay. He's from a place called Sporting Chance, Tony Adams Foundation thing.
Yeah.
He's going to come, he's going to speak to you and he's going to get you some help. So basically, Peter Kay's come, sat in my mum and dad's house like this. I'm sat on a sofa with Peter Kay. My mum and dad are sat on the sofa across from us. And my dad's just talking about me like, I'm the problem and I'm this and I'm that. And I was just sat looking at my dad thinking,
I've got
learned all this from you.
Yeah.
Are you going to actually like own up to something here and say, look, basically, you know, I've got an addiction as well. Or I like a bet.
And you're early 20s at this point at Halifax?
I'm probably about 20,
20.
21.
Right.
I just thought, you're like throwing me under the bus here.
Yeah.
You know, are you going to...
Yeah.
It's mad you say that, because when I was going through the notes of your other podcasts and putting things together for today, I had a section for relatability in terms of things that you've been through that I thought were quite relatable to myself. And there's things around there like month wages gone in a day, living on a fiver, telling lies, jumping on transport and keeping this perception up that you've got money because when you haven't.
Yeah.
And I had the same sort of situation. And the big one for me was needing that sort of arm around your shoulder and that father figure to maybe give you some what dad does, bit of guidance, bit of coaching. Don't do that, son, you're doing that wrong. And I didn't really have any of that either. And there's so many relatability points within your story where I heard it and thought, fucking hell, that's similar to me. But obviously I was going through college and university and pulling out of university and starting work. You were booking training with Shearer with Bobby Robson and it's just crazy.
Yeah.
Absolutely mad.
The thing is with my dad was the best dad you could ever possibly want.
Yeah.
Up to like 18, 19.
Then he become your mate, you said, didn't you?
And he did everything. He sacrificed stuff. I mean, I saw a comment on a podcast the other day, or a podcast I've done, saying, oh, it must run in the family, it must be hereditary because my dad lost his job using the fuel card at work.
Right.
Or abusing the fuel card at work.
Yeah.
Now, that, like, I know why that happened.
Gambling?
No, not gambling.
No.
That was to caught me everywhere around the country playing football.
Right.
Oh, okay.
So these sacrifices my dad did,
Yeah.
you know, lost jobs, and I know he did. And through, like, he once hired a prestige car to take me up to Newcastle. And that was when I signed. Went up to meet Bobby Robson and everything like that. He had a prestige car on the club, on the work account.
Yeah.
Because he wanted to go in style. He wanted to, like, get his perception of, like, we're coming properly here, kind of thing.
Yeah. With your best interests at heart. Yeah.
So it weren't. So there's things like that. So again, these players I've played with who didn't make the grade or were good enough to make the grade, but they didn't have my dad. And they've said, if I had your dad, I'd have been a superstar.
Yeah.
So again, this ain't like a witch hunt on my dad because I've got my issues with my dad, 100%.
Yeah.
But I'm never going to get what I want from him.
Yeah.
Which is accountability and things like that. I just say, you know what, son, I messed up. Because
Yeah.
my dad was only young when he had me.
Yeah.
My dad was only 18, 19 when he had me. So he was still a young lad.
Yeah.
And then when I were 14, 15, he's like early 30s.
Yeah.
So I've been early 30s once before, you know, you're still doing things what a young man does.
Yeah.
So again, he's not mature enough on things like that. So I get it, I understand it, but it's just nice to hear my dad take some responsibility for everything in life. Do you know what I mean?
And you know this thing with Sporting Chance, what does that initial assessment look like? And are you at this time in a headspace where you think, yeah, I actually need the help now?
Truthfully honest, no, because it were more my parents and my dad wanting to get me right.
Yeah.
Not you wanting
but not
to
me.
stop.
I was too young. I didn't understand what were going off with myself. And just before that, my mum and dad took me to Gamblers Anonymous, and it was on a Sunday evening in Sheffield.
Yeah.
And to say how big city is, they were just one a week on a Sunday evening. And they took me down there, and funny enough, my mum come in with me, and she went to another meeting, for like parents and
I've done GA
like
and the similar.
They have another meeting next door.
Yeah, parents and guardians in there, gamblers in there. Yeah,
and my dad stayed in car, so I went into this gambler's office. I'm like 20. I was, a bit daunting for me.
Yeah,
my mum went next door to listen to whatever, and my dad stayed in car, which obviously speaks volumes because he weren't interested in the help or identifying stuff or admitting he'd got a problem. He was just probably in car reading paper about some horses or so, I don't know, whatever, but he didn't come in. So again, that showed me, my mum were willing, because my mum's had it all her life with gambling and stuff, like regards to my dad. And my mum were there willing to help me or to support me in some way. But my dad didn't.
I'm going to go back to Newcastle in a sec, but while we're talking about your old man, there was a story that you mentioned in a different pod where he comes down to the club, goes in and has
Sheffield Wednesday, yeah.
Can you tell us that story, mate, or give us a bit of insight into what happened at Wednesday?
So obviously while I was at Wednesday...
this is before you signed for Newcastle, isn't it?
Before I've signed for Newcastle. So we're quite early on, so as well I were doing, like, gaining reserves and stuff like that, a player who I played with at Wednesday, the keeper, Irish lad, Sheffield Wednesday paid for his taxi from Manchester Airport back to Sheffield. And he come back into training after the weekend and said, I've got the taxi account number, basically, because the club's gave it me to use. So I said, well, what is it like? So he's like, it's 0070. It's like, all right. So then after a few weeks, we started using it on a night out, on a Saturday night and stuff like that. But we just did it, and so we used to sign each other. Well, we didn't sign each other's names, just sign somebody else's name who played for the club or whatever, another player's name. So, so then after about 6 weeks, 7 weeks, manager said, look, there's a first team meeting upstairs, fit reserves at first team. You're involved, you need to go up to this meeting. So I'm thinking, well, am I involved in a game? Am I getting my first team appearance or what? And as soon as we sat down, just a bit of a atmosphere, a bit weary of everything. Peter Shreves and Terry Hofer at the time, who were the managers, just said, like, right, we've had a taxi bill for like $3,500 for the last 8 weeks or something. What the fuck's basically going off? So I was like sat there like, oh no, here we go. I'm going to get called out here. And they just said, look, so he had a word with first team and us, and they just said, look, can these 4 people stay behind? And I was one of them. So I was like, oh no. So I was last in to go in. So other 3 lads, so there were 2 lads what were all right, and then the 3rd lad, he got sacked. So he come out a bit upset, and then it were me to go in, so I went in. And then they were just talking about what am I doing in a taxi with 3 other women on a Saturday night and whatever, and they've had reports of this and that. So I was just like, right, okay. And they said, well, we're not having it. So you're sacked. As brutal as that, you're sacked. So...
Are you shitting yourself when they told you this?
It was just, I didn't know what to think. I was just like, whoa. You know what I mean? I was just like, wow. In a bit of a daze, to be honest. And I come out of the room, went down the stairs, back in the foyer, went to the changing rooms, because we'd not started training yet. This was a meeting before training. And lads were like, what's happened? And I'm like, I've been sacked. You what? I've been sacked. So obviously, got in my trouser pocket, got my phone out, rung my dad. And rung him and just said, what's up, son? You should be training, shouldn't you? Till like 10 o'clock. So I said, yeah, I've been sacked. You what? I've been sacked. Right, give me 5 minutes. I'm nearby. Come off phone, just like, right, okay. So Charlie Williamson, who were the under-17s trainer at the time, he come in, he says, look, I've just heard the news. I know you've been sacked, like, I can't believe it. Like, but do you want to train? You got your training, yeah. Do you just want to train for today? So I was just like, yeah, fuck it, go on then, I'll train.
Still a kid, aren't you? You still want to play football.
I'm still not processed that I've been sacked. I just thought, hey, I'll just carry on playing. And we were warming up in top corner, middle of the road on top pitch, and we just heard this like screech coming around corner. And Charlie Williamson just said, Carl, is that your dad? Because he used to work for a company, and it was like distinctive, this van. And he just come around corner, it parked into the corner at training ground, on edge of pitch, basically, got first team pitch, where they were all in centre circle, congregated talking. And he just slammed van door, just got out, and just walked straight across pitch. And he went, is that your dad? I went, yeah, it is. So he just like walked, and he just like went, I couldn't obviously hear him so far away, but it was just like that, pointing and then pointed at building, and then walked off to the building on his own. So Charlie went, what's happening, Karl? I ain't got a clue. I don't know what's going off here. So next minute I see Peter Shreves, Terry Orriff, walk behind him to the building. 10 minutes after that, a lad who were injured at the time, who'd been in gym, he come out, run up to the pitch and went, you wanted it in office. So Charlie says, right, go and get your trainers on, go to the office. Like, I went to the boot room, took my boots off, put my trainers on, I'm just like, fucking hell, what's going off here? And I walked through the foyer and I got to the stairs, and my dad was walking downstairs. And he just like tapped me on the hand and just went, I've sorted it, I'll see you when I get home.
What?
So I'm just like, got to the top of the stairs and I was just like, do I knock, do I walk in or whatever? So I just knocked, like, come in. And they were just like, right, basically your dad's made some good points and everything and like that. So we don't want to, you're not doing it again. If you do it again, you will be
reinstated.
It'll be reinstated. We're reinstating you.
So you're released for about an hour?
Not even that. Probably about 45 minutes.
What did your dad say?
Do you know what happened in
he's
that
never
room?
no.
Never told you?
He's never said.
Oh, mate.
He's never once said.
Wow.
Still to this day, I don't know what he said. Or what
Brilliant.
He just got back in van and that
Just drove off, carried on with his day.
But funny enough, I bumped into a security guard who worked on training ground a few years ago. And he says, your dad nearly killed me. He says he come in car park around about 50 mile an hour. He says, and I went like that to stop him. And he says he just drove straight for me. I had to dive out of the way. And I bumped into him. He told me that. And I said, I apologise. Like, mate. He says, no, it's all right. He says, but...
And like when you got home that night, you didn't say anything?
Didn't say anything. I still to this day don't know what he said in that office.
Quality.
Yeah.
Back to Newcastle. So, how are you feeling when you train? Because Shearer, Ginola, Ferdinand, were they all there when you were training?
No, Shearer were still. So it were more like Jermaine Jenas, Rob Lee, Shea Given, Bellamy, Kieran Dyer,
Bowyer?
Bobby Solano. No, Bobby weren't there.
Oh, do you remember
Solano.
Bowyer and Dyer? Remember when they kicked off against Villa?
Yeah.
Solano, he come to Villa as well. I remember him.
Bobby Solano, he were good.
What was it like just going as a young lad going and training with these guys that are fucking stars, really, aren't they?
Because
you said it didn't bother you. I think.
I think that's testimony to them.
Yeah,
because how well they treated me and how well they made me feel welcome, and I weren't just a young lad and I've got something to prove and do this and do that. It was just kind of, come on, son, here you are. You're part of us now.
Yeah.
Which were funny because at Sheffield Wednesday, I never had that.
Right.
To say Sheffield Wednesday, obviously, Sheffield Wednesday were in Championship then, and like I said, they are a big club. But the players who played for them at that time, they were just big time fuckers.
Yeah.
And they didn't have any time for young lads, and they never made you feel welcome. You know what I mean? About like that. So there were a massive gap between reserves and first team. Reserves and first team at Newcastle, there were no gap. We all trained together.
Yeah.
We all ate together. It were fantastic. So again, it were that more them making me feel welcome than me having to pinch myself thinking, well, I'm training with Shearer here. And
yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because I was sat with him on the court. The first day he'd come on, sat on coach with me. Because we didn't have a training ground then. I know it's in the academy now and everything where it is in Benton in Newcastle, but they were just hiring that. Like a gasworks department pitch or something like that. So we had to get on a coach from St James's Park and go to training. So my first day was I got changed in Newcastle home dressing room with first team, and then got on a bus, and then sat outside at window just thinking. And then Shearer coming and sitting at the side of me.
Wow.
Just saying, "Hey, you all right, son?" You know, making me feel welcome. So again, it was just
mad enough.
Two things I just want to ask on that before I go back into the gambling was you mentioned the players all sort of pulling together and helping you integrate as a team. I'm guessing from the stories that come out later on down the line that wasn't the same with the staff, because you had all these talks around. Was it Beardsley and a couple of other staff members that were? Was it bullying they were done for back then?
Yeah.
Were you part of that group and seen any of that, or?
I'd be lying if I turned around and said I didn't get bullied. But like I say, it's not when you say bully.
It's a different era.
Yeah, when you say bully, it's quite strong of a word. But again, in football and in that environment, it's more mental bullying. It's more mental torture kind of thing. It's like talking about somebody and then going over to the next group of lads and talking about them.
Yeah,
and that's the kind of thing it were. And with me and my experience, it were like when I were injured, don't talk to me. and see me in corridor, don't say hello. And the attitude were, well, good to me, injured.
Yeah.
As soon as I were fit, they'd talk to you and, be all right. But again, they got a... I don't know what it were with Alan Irvine with me, because he had a bit of a... I don't know, it was kind of weird, because he was a big part of me signing for Newcastle. Like, obviously, there's a story of me in training and megging him and then putting him in top corner and he used to tackle me and things like that. And again, instead of just like applauding me and saying, well, that was unbelievable.
This ain't Sheffield Wednesday.
He's saying, Sheffield Wednesday, who do you think you are?
Yeah.
Who you calling Megs on and stopping training and singling me out and stuff like that. And again, it's damaging for somebody who's 17, 18, who's away from home. And these are the things what have a knock-on effect, because like when I'm leaving training and then going home and sitting on my own device or gambling or whatever, I've got this thought in my head of like, am I liked at club? What's his agenda with me?
Yeah.
And there's a few other things like what happened, but it is that era,
Because was there anyone that comes to mind when you think of your early career that did put an arm around you and say, come on, mate, do you know what I mean?
The younger years at Rotherham were fantastic.
Yeah.
And not only that, my dad were there to put an arm around my shoulder.
Yeah.
I used to come home or my dad would take me to football and we'd have a conversation on the way home about stuff. So that support network wasn't there.
Yeah.
And it is hard. And do I regret going to Newcastle? Slightly. But I just think it was a wrong time for me to go. I weren't old enough. I weren't mature enough. Yeah. And
but then at the same time, I think you've got to think. I mean, I still in today's day and age, there's still nowhere near enough programs going into 16 to 18-year-olds at college, university, or academies around finances, basic life. Yeah. There's still not enough now, mate. So I imagine you got absolutely nothing back then.
Yeah.
In terms of you're going to be earning this amount of money. This is what a credit card is. This is what, because one thing I wanted to come on to was when you mentioned when you signed for Newcastle, you 18 or 19, you went to a bank to try and get...
I just turned 18.
Do you want to tell that story, mate?
Yeah,
I couldn't believe this, man.
So basically, the money I earned was the money I spent, and because I was only 17, I couldn't get any credit. So then as soon as I turned 18, and I got all this credit to me disposal now to apply for stuff, and that's what I did, and I knew with my job and my income, that they'd start throwing everything at me, which they did, and it was that era where that's why there were a financial crash in 2008, but it all stemmed from that. And I went into a bank, Lloyds TSB in Newcastle, and asked for a 20 grand loan. And they weren't going to give me until I mentioned that I were actually a professional footballer for Newcastle. Yeah. And then they offered me a credit card, overdraft, and everything. And I just spunked that in about 2 weeks.
What was the 20 grand for?
To gamble.
Was it?
Yeah.
Wow.
But until you mentioned professional football player for Newcastle, it was...
Yeah, because I'd only had the accounts since I was 16. So I left school and they were allowed to TSB in my village where I lived. Yeah. So obviously I left school, got the account there, and I did the account 2 years. So I just turned 18. But he'd seen what I were earning, what my contract were, professional footballer. He just threw it at me. He said, yeah, no problem. We'll give you that.
Can you remember how you felt when you blew that money that you got that first time? Because I'm trying to put it back, think about me again, and remember blowing my student loan, then pulling out of uni, and I'm me thinking I've transitioned from being a social gambler to having a bit of fun underage to blew my student loan.
I don't think, not till later on in life I've realised that.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Because it was just it's all like a blur.
Yeah.
But I can remember back then, waking up thinking I need to have a bet, I need to gamble, even at that young age.
And that's at 18.
That's how I was thinking back then. Yeah.
So you got the loan, so it's obviously got pretty bad at this point because you've gone and got 20k just to...
Yeah.
How did it get so bad? Can you remember how it got so bad? How it got so, I guess, out of control?
Would boredom play a part, Karl?
Massively. But just like I said, because I were away from the club and left to my own device, I didn't have a group of friends like I did at home. I didn't have a family around me like I did at home. It was just, like I said, lost kid in a big city. What do I do? Who do I see? I weren't interested in drinking. And it was, again, do what I know or what I've seen.
Yeah. And you said the bookies
that's
felt like
what
home
it was, And it was like a safe haven for me to sit in there.
Yeah.
I felt safe. Reminded me of home. I knew what I was doing. It was all stuff I'd learned, picked up as a kid and whatever. Yeah. And again, more time I spent in there, the more money I spent, and the more deeper into shit I was getting, basically.
What was your first interaction with Bobby Robson at Newcastle?
first interaction with Bobby Robson when I played a first team game up at Aaron and Athletic, and I come on for Marcelino, if you remember him.
Yeah, I do. Yeah,
Spanish centre half.
Yeah.
Ruud Gullit signed him before Bobby Robson, and I think they were trying to get him out of the club basically because he was sat on a whack, but never played any games.
Right.
So training, he used to didn't train and just sit in jacuzzi and a sauna. So we played this. We're a mixture of reserves and first team game up at Aaron Athletic pre-season, and I come on for the last half an hour for him. I think it was me and Stephen Caldwell at the back, and their centre forward got the ball and turned, and I just come in from nowhere and just smashed him, took ball, everything. Like unbelievable tackle, like not what you see now. I'd have been probably got a 10-game ban for it, but back then it was like, and a couple of lads, Michael Chopper at the time said to me after, he says, when you went in for that tackle.
Chopper, he's had his struggles with gambling
Yeah,
as well.
yeah, massively. Yeah, we used to room together.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, funny enough.
Nightmare.
Yeah, but back then, like, just going off, back then, there were no means of betting on phones or anything, but you used to have a laptop.
Yeah, because you could gamble on a laptop, but the apps come out in 07, I think, or 08.
Yeah.
Around that time.
But they were way before that, so I don't know how we were doing it or what, but for some reason he always had a laptop.
Yeah.
And in 2002-03, it were known to somebody, unless it's like for work purpose or anything, but he used to have a laptop. Yeah. And I never used to ask what he were doing. But again, I weren't a social gambler. I weren't gambling with anybody else. I was just fixated on my own. Yeah. I had to go in my own world and my own, space to do what I was doing.
Yeah.
So it weren't about anybody else. So I never really asked, but he was doing exactly the same. And I know he's had massive problems with it and he's pissed all his money at the wall, basically. But going back to the game, he turned around to me and said that when I went in for this tackle, Bobby Robson turned round and didn't even look at the tackle. He just turned around and went like that. So after the game, I think we won. And then after the game, he's going round the team and he's like getting everybody else's names wrong because that's what he was like. He used to call like Sholami Obi, Karl Colley and get mixed up and whatever. And he come to me and he can't even remember my name. So he's like, big man, just you did very well, but just watch your tackles. You're gonna kill somebody, and that way. And as soon as he said that to me, I was like, fucking hell, brilliant. You know what I mean? He didn't. It was just like, and that's how it were like playing for him. But like playing for your granddad. Yeah. You just had utmost respect for him, and because he was like 70 odd and a bit senile and a bit, he were brilliant working with him. And that's why everybody felt like it was just utmost respect for him.
Must be. I know you'll look back and reflect on your career and think, I could have done better with here, and here. But there must be some proud moments, like for being in a change room with one of the best British managers of all time.
Yeah.
And so there is.
But again, he's done. There's been that much shit in my life. Yeah. It overshadows the accolades I've got or what I achieved or where I played and what I did. Right. It just kind of covers all that with this shit of gambling and depression and all the stuff I've been through. So sometimes I can break out from it and somebody might remind me, so like, just said, nah, he's like, you've done this, you've done that. And I think, well, yeah, I did. But majority of the time, it's just, when I look back at that era and them times, it's just dark thoughts because it was just like, I'm in that situation, I blew that money, I didn't do this, I didn't do that, I was lonely, I was depressed. So it's not very, very fond memories for me. Yeah. So that's why, like, at the minute, I'm coming out of the other side of it, obviously now going, well, you did achieve this, you did achieve that. Yeah. Well done for doing it. Yeah, definitely. And being open and honest and talking about my struggles back then and moving forward with it. But for years, I couldn't watch Newcastle. My dad used to turn telly off at Newcastle. Years after, my dad would not watch Newcastle because of where my career had gone and what I'd done and everything like that. He couldn't come to grips with it. And again, that's where our relationship went downhill because my dad was like blaming me for what I'd done. And I'm going, well, hold on a minute, mate. Yeah. And again, we used to clash near the games, physical fights, stuff like that. But my dad was hurting as well. But again.
So how long now have you been, I was always the same, always focused on the negatives and the bad things that were going on. So how long have you been kind of doing work to turn your bad or your lived experience into a positive to help others?
The idea has always been there probably for the last 6-7 years to do this. Yeah. But again, am I right to do it? Is my life right to do it? Is my environment right to do it? Probably not. And the realisation is, obviously I got sent to prison last April. And that was a realisation in there, because that was the break I needed to myself and my environment, and to me, you know, I needed that cut off from everybody. And it was kind of where I am now. Like, I was 39 when I went in. I obviously had my 40th in there, but it was kind of like that switch at 40 going, right, you know what, enough's enough now. And I can remember my wording were changing and how I was speaking were changing while I was inside. It was like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. No, I might do this, and I've got an idea. It was like, no, I'm going to do this. And I mentioned to like lads who were in the Nick, I'm saying, when I come out, I'm going on podcasts. I'm taking it there. I'm going to start, you know. And I've been writing a book for the last 6-7 years, which I've never got round to finishing, because again, life.
You definitely need to finish your book, mate.
Yeah,
Definitely.
so I'm on the process of doing it. I'm always going to be out next year.
Yeah.
But I am on that now,
Yeah.
doing it. We a writer and an author and everything like that. But again, yeah, I will fetch it. I'm going to do it. But my wording's changing, my mentality's changed.
Yeah.
So me working on myself inside, when I come out, and obviously Under the Cosh got in touch with me and stuff like that, that's how it's been for the last like 8 months.
Yeah, you've been busy, haven't you, with the podcast?
So
and
I'm
stuff
just like keeping it going, and the more feedback I have, and people acknowledging what I'm saying, and you know, saying I've done sick. It's not just like in professional sport. I'm getting people from everywhere, different backgrounds, contacting me, saying you're a breath of fresh air. What we've watched, I can relate to it so much.
Yeah.
And then that drives me on to do more,
Yeah.
to do more podcasts, to go and talk more, you know, do more projects and stuff like that. Because I think if nobody's listening and nobody gives you any feedback, again, same way in that football environment, is you just lose.
Yeah.
You lose interest in it, and then you can go back to them days and them dark days and stuff like that. But at the minute, it's all been positive and good, and it's nice and refreshing, because it's never been positive and for a very, very long time. And it goes back to them football days when I was doing well at football.
Yeah.
That's when all that positive feedback was coming back.
Yeah.
And it's now coming back 20 years later.
Yeah.
But in a different way.
Yes, I mean, we both suffered with our own addictions, Conor with cocaine and me with gambling. And one thing that we took from this pod when we started it 7-8 months ago was the fact that you could sit here with a camera and just be honest for a change, instead of telling, you know, when you're just sick of telling the lies and trying to keep up with the lies, you don't know what lies you've told. And the big thing about this podcast for us was transparency and honesty, and getting people like yourself on that have had fortunate situations in terms of the potential career options they had. Things might not have got to plan, but more around the tools that you've used to come out the other side, and whether people can take bits and bobs from your story, really. Yeah. Just going back to Newcastle, did gambling ruin your career at Newcastle? Is that
it was a major part,
Yeah.
Major factor. But I think, again, the lack of support. I mean, gambling occupied me.
Yeah.
I went into a safe space. Now, there could have been a safe space put there for me for something else.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Support network, you know, other players around me. Like I said, I never went for a game of snooker, a game of golf, all this stuff what footballers used to do.
Yeah.
I never did all that because none of the players were around me. I were in Whitley Bay, Monk Seaton, which is like on to the coast, away from Newcastle.
Yeah.
So I never had any of that. And I just think, again, the things I'm doing now is putting more supporting footballers away from the club.
Yeah.
It should be a lot better. And not only that, I think whether they do it or not, I don't know. But an idea I had was like, I think that a first team player should be like a buddy to a youth team player or a reserve or whatever it is, or whatever the age they are, just so that they know they've got some support.
Yeah.
And I think if they put somebody in place like that, I think that'd be good for young players.
I think you bang on, mate. Because I do a lot of work with the football academy, so the first, second year scholars, and sometimes the under 23s, 21s, etc. And the common thing that come up within guests that we've had within football and footballers I've spoke to is, where do you go when that problem arises? Because you don't want to tell the education manager in case he tells the coach.
Yeah.
You might not want to go to your safeguarding or your welfare team in case it's going to affect your chances of playing. So it's almost like, shit, if I'm in a club, where do I go with this information? And I think you're right, mate. I think there's massive scope there for people like you and other ex-pros like Merce that have experience of gambling addiction, for you guys to also be playing a role in it. And you might not tick certain boxes that the FA want to see, but at the same time, I don't think it's about ticking boxes. It's about being relatable to them people and them being comfortable about opening up to you.
Yeah.
And I don't think there is that within elite sport at the minute, especially within football.
I think it's a lot in everything like this. It's like a lot of people have just learnt everything out of the book.
Yeah.
Gone to university, got a degree, in whatever.
Yeah.
But the biggest degree you can have is lived experience.
Yeah.
And I want to get back into professional football because I can pick up on these things.
Yeah.
I can identify people, players, in the behaviour, if they ever got any struggles or anything like that. I can relate to it straight away. So I'd probably be the best person to talk to.
Yeah.
And to guide them through that.
Yeah.
Whereas, like when I was at Sheffield United, we had a vicar. I mean, if you got any problems, you went to see the club chaplain or the vicar.
Wow, really?
And I mean, the stuff I were doing, what can I go and tell him?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He'd tell me I was going to hell.
Yeah.
Or whatever. Start throwing holy water on me. I don't know. But again, how can he relate to everything I'm going to tell him?
Yeah.
And then what's he going to do for me?
Which is a massive part, because I spent 6 weeks in rehab, and I thought I was going to get there. It was going to be doctors, white coats and stuff like that. But it was a rehab run by other people in recovery, other addicts.
Yeah.
And just to look at people and think, oh, they're actually okay now. They're actually having a laugh.
Yeah.
It's just a massive relief, and actually give you hope. I think lived experience plays a huge part in allowing people to open up and talk about addiction.
Yeah. I mean, same as I can remember being at clubs, and if somebody come in with a suit and tie on to talk to players about whatever, everybody just switch off.
Yeah.
No relatability,
Everybody's
is
like,
there?
oh, here we go. He wants to talk about investments. He wants to talk about whatever. You know, he's from PFA. He wants to talk about pensions.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I was just like, just get me out of here.
Yeah.
Again, but if somebody's coming with a story and talk about something interesting or something I might relate to and think, well, hold on a minute, he's talking about something I'm struggling with, then again, it's a better impact and a better effect on people.
Mate, the smallest little bits with professional football and relatability, going in there with a decent pair of trainers on,
Yeah.
instead of going on with a suit on, can make a difference. And
Some
someone
shit
opening up.
fuckers,
Yeah.
That's what I mean, yeah.
Last one on Newcastle. So you ended up leaving Newcastle and going to Sheffield United. When because you left Newcastle in probably a very unorthodox way for anyone that don't know, you sort of made the decision after speaking with your mum that you were coming home, didn't you?
Yeah. I mean, I was living in an hotel.
Oh, were you?
I got thrown out of my digs.
Right.
For what?
Well, this is what I'm saying about clubs and support and stuff like that. So basically, I had two friends come up and they were female from Sheffield.
Two friends?
Weekend. Yeah, they were.
Okay.
I went to school with them. I went to school with one of them. And another one I was kind of involved with in a way.
Right.
And I was playing Liverpool away on the Saturday for the under-19s at Newcastle. So we went to Liverpool on the Friday. They come up to Newcastle on the Friday. So I've said, well, get an hotel on Friday. You can stay at my dig Saturday. No need to get an hotel. Because the guy who I'd lived with, he was working away all weekend. So I didn't see it being a problem.
Yeah.
So the day we come back to St James's Park that afternoon, it's when Arsenal beat Newcastle 2-0 in the FA Cup, and Bergkamp did that flick round the corner.
Oh, yeah.
What a
It
goal.
was that game. Kicked off at 5:30. So we got back. I didn't go into the game. I went back home to meet my two friends to sort them out. So basically, come back to the digs. We had some food. We got ready. I took them out to Quayside. We had a good night. We all come back. And I lived with another kid who played with me, a goalkeeper called Karl as well. He was living with me at the time. So he come out. We all went back to ours, and we were pissed, basically. We just fell asleep on my bed.
Yeah.
That was it. Got in bed. Nothing happened. So I get up and I says, look, I'll take you for some lunch before you get back on the train back to Sheffield. So as we've left, we've come back in the afternoon, and the guy's car's on the drive, who I live with, the digs lad. His car's on the drive. So I've got like, oh shit, he's back. But there were no bad what happened. But the bags were on my bed, all packed, ready to go. So we went back. I says, Lord, just get your bags and I'll take you to the train station. So I says, oh, this is so-and-so, this is so-and-so to him. Nice to meet you. And he just went, oh, I'll have a word with you when you get back. Took him to the train station, come back. And he just said, oh, what's going off? I said, no, I've just had two friends round. I said, they were struggling to get an hotel last night. I said, so they could just crash here. I said, I just took them out like that, basically. Well, what do you think it is, a fucking knocking shop? I'm like, no, why? He's like, well, it's two females in house going off like this. And I just said, yeah, they're friends from Sheffield. I says, no, it's happened. I says, you can ask Karl, like, he can vouch for me. Anyway, Karl never said no. He kind of like chucked me under the bus a bit. So he weren't saying anything. So I'm trying to like explain myself. And I says, well, and he said, well, I've spoke to Karl. No women slept in his bed. I've been and looked in my bed. That's not been touched. So I went, well, I know. We slept in my bed. I said, we just fell asleep on my bed. That was it. He went, well, I'm not having it. He says, so you've got 7 days to get out of my house. So I'm like, again, what? So he's like, yeah, you've got 7 days to get out of my house. I'm not having it. So he told club. And the club put me in an hotel. So I'm in an hotel for like 2 months. So like my phone bill was massive because I was ringing everybody at home. I was just lonely. I was gambling even more. So it was just spiralling out of control. And then I spoke to my mum and I just broke down to her again because I couldn't speak to my dad about my problems and stuff because he wouldn't understand. And she said, "No, you're coming home. Your dad's coming up at weekend to watch you play. Get your stuff and you're coming home with him."
When you say you spoke to your mum, what did you tell her about gambling and stuff like that or not?
No, I just told her I was depressed. I just said I want to come home. I've had enough. And burst out crying. And she cried and just said, "Right, I'm not having it now. You're coming home." And she was missing me as well. So she's like, "You're coming home, that's it. I'm telling your dad."
Yeah, so
my dad wouldn't have wanted that.
Yeah,
my
she
dad
was more about your well-being and stuff. Yeah,
laid law down and said, like, "You're fetching him home."
You took your bags to a game as well, didn't you?
Yeah, so Peter Ramage picked me up for the game in the morning.
Centre back.
Yeah, he's centre back with me. Yeah, centre half partner. I can remember coming out with all my like bags and knife fight and everything, telly and everything. He's chucked it in boot and he says, "What's happening with you?" I said, "I'm going home." And he was just like laughing like I was just messing about basically. So we played Coventry at Newcastle's training ground. And then after the game, I just said to Peter Bezos, "I'm off." And he just thought I was going on for a weekend kind of thing. That's when I'm off. And he went, "Well, see you Monday." So he went, and I just walked out. So lads again just thought I was going on for a weekend, pissing about basically. And then I didn't come back. And then I come back in on Tuesday. Alan Irvine said, "Come back in on Tuesday." So I went back in. I spoke to him. I spoke to Bobby Robson. I just told him, I said, "Look, I'm homesick. I'm not enjoying it." And Bobby Robson
Did
said,
you want to open up about the gambling? Or were you too scared?
I'm too scared.
Yeah.
Because again, it's like, what are you going to think of me here? And again, it's...
To put in that into context as well, mate, when I was struggling with gambling early 2010, 2011, around that time, people didn't understand gambling then. No. They used to say, "Well, just stop." So that was 2010.
It's like everyone frowns upon gambling.
Yeah.
If I turn around and said I'm an alcoholic, they'd probably say, "We'll get some Melbourne."
Yeah.
Or if with drugs.
Gambling, just fucking stop.
Gambling, it's like, what? Nobody understands it.
Yeah.
It's like frowned upon. And it still is now. There's still always like a stigma to it. Always like you're always scared of that reaction of what someone's going to say. It's like, I think it's the worst one of all of them because it's so hard to mask. It's so hard to lie about it, to like keep it a secret. It's so easy, and again, it's not. There's no like physical features of it.
None. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's what gets me, and that's why I say it's the hardest. It's the easy one to lie about, but it's the hardest one to deal with.
Yeah.
Because you could just like literally lose everything for somebody else within seconds. When you're just taking drugs, you're just harming yourself. You're going to kill yourself. There's only so much drugs and drink you can do before you die. With gambling, it don't kill you. You have to physically, and some people have, unfortunately. Their way out is to obviously take their own lives.
You can relate to the hole that they get in with gambling where you can think there's no way out.
Yeah.
Just going back to Newcastle, sorry, I was interrupted there. Bobby Robson didn't want you to go, did he?
No.
He made it clear that he wanted you to. Did he send you home and say, "Think about things"?
Sent me home for a week, and just said, "Look, spend some time with your family. Come back refreshed. We've got some big plans for you." So I did, and he rang my mum and dad's house phone on the Sunday night, which were like Bobby Robson's up phone.
Fucking
hell. Like, you know what I mean? So hello, not landline back then. Hello. So he says, "Look, are you all right? Is everything all right? Yeah, you're back in tomorrow. So I'll see you bright and early, blah, blah, blah." I said, "I don't want to come back, Gaffer." I said, and he went, "Right, all right." He said, "Listen, I'll give you another week." So give me another week. I did exactly the same. He rang me back on the Sunday on the landline, mum and dad's house. And I just said, "Look, I just want to play local. I just want to be at home."
Yeah.
And he was just like, "Right, okay. Have you thought about it properly?" I'm like, "Yeah, I want to stay at home." So he's like, "Right, okay. Get your agent to ring me or sort something out with the club." He says, "But we'll not be letting you go for free." And that were his last words. Right, and he wished me all the best. And that were it. I never returned back to Newcastle. So my agent and whatever sorted it out. And Sheffield United were interested now, which was funny enough because they turned me down a year and a bit ago.
Are you still a Sheffield United fan at this point when they come back in for you?
Yeah.
Because I suppose anyone listening to this might be thinking, "Fucking hell, he's got his dream move to his..." He's gone from not a dream move maybe, but he's gone from Newcastle to his boyhood club where he's from.
That were it, exactly. And obviously all my mates, everything signed for Sheffield United. And again, it weren't just signing a YTS, it was just signing a professional.
Yeah.
There were a transfer fee involved. It were all up papers in Sheffield. There were big headlines and stuff. So it were good. It were, you know, I were lapping it all up basically. But it were 100% worst move I've ever made.
When you spent the 2 weeks at home, were you in a better headspace, or were you gambling still, or was you still at home?
No, I was just hanging around with my mates.
So you stopped gambling?
No, I was still gambling.
Still gambling?
Yeah. Still gambling.
But you had a bit of support there because you had your friends around you instead of being.
The support I needed? No, not really. Because nobody understood. It was still, I was still lying to everybody. With mum and my dad, yeah, it was nice being at home and mum cooking me tea and seeing my brother and my dog and whatever. That were all right. But I was too deep into it.
And still at this point in your head, it didn't click that this was an issue, the gambling?
No.
Yeah.
No. My behaviour at Sheffield United as a professional footballer was just horrendous.
I've got a note here. You said it was a disgrace, didn't you, your time at Sheffield United?
Yeah, it was a disgrace, mate. I was too deep into everything else. The gambling, the depression, the football violence. And again, me going into football violence and stuff like that was just me seeking to be belonging somewhere. Yeah. Again, feeling safe, people around me, that kind of support network. Yeah. Not the right support network, but some kind of support network. And just letting me anger out because I'd have lost some money that week or whatever, and I would go into them in places and environments where I knew I could get a fight or whatever to let all my shit out, basically. So again, indulging deep into that world and doing other stuff as well, debt collecting and things like that, because people just saw me as a big, angry, strong, powerful lad who were angry with the world and where his football career had gone and stuff like that. And people took advantage of me, no doubt about it. But again, I still wanted to live on that wage, that footballer's wage, that footballer's lifestyle, but doing stuff, not earning a footballer's wage, but not actually playing football. So I was getting into other stuff.
So did everything almost get worse then from Newcastle to Sheffield United? Even though you thought, I'm going to be moving back home, I might have more support around me initially, did it then, is that where the football violence really come into play and the gambling got worse and all that?
Yeah, I never, like I say, I used to mask it at Newcastle. I'd obviously on my way to training and give that persona of I'm a professional footballer, I play for Newcastle, I've got plenty of money, I'm not whatever. At Sheffield United, I didn't mask anything. Right. It was just there for everyone to see. I was just a disgrace. I turned up at training late. I was out fighting with lads when I should have been sat behind bench with suit on, squad and things like that. It was just an absolute disgrace. So I weren't masking anything. I was just doing it. Whereas at Newcastle, I still wanted to be a professional footballer. Still give that identity as a professional footballer. At Sheffield United, I was like a pub player.
I think it was the end of the cost where you talked about the story of the bus, where you found out after signing for Sheffield United that they'd paid a fee for you, but that fee was then structured over certain one appearance, 10 appearances, so many goals or something like that.
Yeah.
You tell us about that when you think, right, I'm at Sheffield United, I'm potentially playing, and then you turn up and you're being sent on a bike ride. And was that the first game that where you thought you'd be involved, but the fucking bus driver?
It was pre-season to Ireland. So the thing is, I come from Newcastle as a professional footballer. Bearing in mind, I'm still only 18, so I can still play for the under-19s and train with youth team or whatever. So I kind of like, that's where they put me. And I'm thinking, well, why not with first team here? Why not got a squad number? What's crack here? Like? And that's why I had to pull Kevin Blackwell down at ground and just say, look, I've come from Newcastle. Where's my squad number? I said, I asked for one, not just give me one.
Yeah.
So again, from the start, it was just a complete disaster and disgrace. And it was, like I say, we're all on appearance money. So I knew. I can remember going home. I saw Terry Robinson, the chief executive, in the ticket office because I was getting some tickets. And he said, "Are you settling in, Karl? You all right?" And I'm like, yeah, I'm good, mate. Thank you. And he went, "Do you know how much we've got to pay Newcastle for your first team appearance?" I went, "No." Because obviously I weren't involved in them negotiations. I went, "No." And he went, 75 grand. And just walked off. So I didn't think no about it. So anyway, I got home and obviously said, "Oh, I've seen Terry Robinson today." I said, "Oh, yeah, what's he said?" He said, Sheffield United's got to pay Newcastle on my first team appearance 75 grand. And he just like dropped his knife and fork, because I told him at tea time. He just like dropped his knife and fork and went, "Well, that's you not playing then, isn't it?"
So your old man knew straight away, but you still
didn't have the money to do it.
Yeah.
Didn't have the money to do it. So we're like false pretenses again. So again, I was like blinded by signing for Sheffield United, coming home, all the hype, signing for the Boyard Club, and all lads and everybody hyping it up and everything. And it was just shocking. It was honestly the worst decision I've ever made. But again, I'm making decisions in that environment, with that headspace of gambling, depression. So you're not going to make sound decisions.
Yeah. Irrational thinking,
and like, right, I'm just going to come home. Whereas I think if I'd have gone to Newcastle a bit more older, a bit more mature, I wouldn't have had all this. And you look back on it now in hindsight, say, I shouldn't have done this and shouldn't have done that. But it's an hard pill to swallow sometimes.
Yeah. I can imagine, mate.
It is an hard pill to swallow, but again, where I am in life now is I just want to give something back and be successful in doing and telling these stories and what I went through, sharing it with others so I can help others, not just get to 70, 80 years old and go, well, I should have done this, I could have done that.
Yeah.
I'm just a loser for, I'm trying to just turn it round and do something positive.
Do you want to go into any of the football hooliganism side of it? Or how it come about, maybe?
Well, how it come about is I've always known there were an element at Sheffield United because we grew up in school and we knew people, in that doing that stuff. And 15, 16, you're looking at these people who are doing it and thinking, I want to be like them. They're wearing nice clothes, Stone Island, all that lot. And they've got some reputation and authority and power and stuff. And we all wanted to be like the top boys or whatever. And we started knocking about with him. But I would, again, on Under the Cosh, they said footballer turned hooligan. And I weren't. I would always been an hooligan since 16.
Right.
Since I started knocking around with him. So it was kind of like living that double life. It more come out at Sheffield United because I was on my doorstep doing it. Like when I were at Newcastle, I could come home at weekend, get into whatever. Yeah. And Newcastle never know about it.
Yeah.
Now I'm doing it at Sheffield United.
Whilst you're in the
playing
contract.
for Sheffield United, and now doing it after the games on a Saturday night in Sheffield City Centre, fighting against rivals Sheffield Wednesday and doing whatever. So it's massively on top now. Yeah. And again, not masking anything, not hiding anything, just doing it because I was getting more joy doing that than I were playing football for the club.
So how would you? I know you've summarised it already by saying it was sort of a disgrace for you personally. But how would you summarise your time at Sheffield United in terms of, did you actually get a chance to play in the end, or was it because they had to pay that initial 75k, you never got the opportunity to play?
So I was sacked when they sacked me.
After how long?
8 months.
8 months.
8 months. 8 months of constant just taking the piss, basically. But again, my attitude was never changing because I was never getting anywhere with the football. So I was just like coming home thinking, well, I'm not playing. Do you know what? Ring lads up. What are you doing? Oh, we're going so-and-so, we're doing this. Oh, yeah, I'll come with you then. And that were it.
And there were occasions where, didn't you say the club they started to realise what was happening with you off the field and what you were getting involved in?
They all knew. They all knew. People who worked at club, they all knew I were involved in it. But again, the club were run shit basically back then.
You told them that, didn't you?
They were dog and dog. And that were dog and dog. I mean, I have played for better Sunday League teams. I've run better Sunday League teams than what it were at Sheffield United.
Didn't they say to you, what do you want to be, a football player or a hooligan?
Oh, an hooligan, yeah. That's what Neil Warnock said to me when he sacked me. I just said, good question. Probably an hooligan. At the time, yeah. And that's what I'm saying, that's how bad it is. That's not like, no, I want to be a footballer. Yeah. Give me another chance. It was just like, yeah, I'd rather be an hooligan.
Was there an element of bitterness from your end, the fact that they'd signed you but their
resentment? I used to piss him off all the time. And that's what it was. That was my job, to piss him off. In my head, I used to wake up and think, right, can I piss him off today? And like, obviously the story of me going to buy some white boots. Yeah. When he turned around and said, I don't want to see centre-halves in white boots. I made sure I went to Sports Direct that morning before training and bought some white boots. Yeah. And then wore them at training and he sent me in. And that's the that's what I wanted from him. I wanted him to react to that. And I did it on purpose. And that's how it were. It was just like cat and mouse all the time. Yeah. So he would probably had enough of me, and I had enough at club. And then we played Leeds in FA Cup on a Sunday morning, and we beat them 1-0 at a quarter final. An hour out with lads from 8 o'clock that morning, running about Sheffield, doing whatever against Leeds. And after the game, I got arrested outside Sheffield train station, fighting with Leeds.
Still as a professional player for Sheffield United?
I should have been in squad. Well, I weren't in squad, but obviously you go in with match day suit, sit behind the bench, support the team, go in at change room before game. I was out with lads at 8 o'clock. No, I'm not doing that. So... but again, big occasion, playing Leeds, Derby, rivalry. Massive. FA Cup quarter final. I'm thinking about them just fetching a firm and what's happening with lads against, you know, with their firm, not, you know, accolades of playing in FA Cup or doing well. I couldn't give a shit, basically, that back then. So, yeah, I got nicked. And then Monday morning, I went to Sheffield United. I went to Bramall Lane, went through player entrance, walked to the boot room to get my boots for training. And the laundry woman said, "Oh, there's a meeting for you upstairs at 10 o'clock. You need to go." So I was like, you know, upstairs, you know, boardroom, there's a meeting for me at 10 o'clock. This can't be good. So anyway, Ron Reid, who was the under-19s manager, come in and he says, "There's a meeting at 10 o'clock and I've been told to come. So what you done? Tell me before we walk in." And I says, "I ain't done out, Ron." It could have been a number of things I could have done, but I was just saying, "No, I've not done anything, Ron. Like, I've not done anything." So he just said, "Please tell me before we go in. Don't leave me." Like, so I just said, "Nothing, Ron." So then we went in, and then he was just going on about stuff, and then I got a real warning for getting into trouble fighting in Chesterfield around Christmas time, which I got a real warning for. And then I got nicked, and he says, "Well, we've had a report. You got arrested yesterday. The police have rung the club up. You got arrested yesterday." And what it were is, it was coming to an end because I was getting false name and address every time I got nicked, or I got Section 6s by police. I was getting false names and addresses. Obviously, I didn't know who I were, and I think it comes to they cottoned on now who I were and everything like that. So they run club up, and then he just said, "Look, we've had reports you got arrested yesterday. What do you want to be, a footballer and a hooligan?" I said, "I would rather be an hooligan, really." And then he just chucked a piece of paper in front of me and said, "Right, sign that, we're sacking you." I said, "Well, that's only 2 written warnings, isn't it?" And he said, "Oh, there's a third one for you not turning into treatment on a Sunday when you were injured." And I went, "Well, I've never been injured." And he says, "Well, you've got a real warning for it." So they wanted to get rid of me as well. So they were like doing everything they could. So it says, "Right, you're sacked." And then it caught it on like, "Well, you owe me some money then, because if you're sacking me, you need to pay the rest of my contract up." And then I just saw Terry Robinson like pass a piece of paper in front of him. And he just like looked at it and went, "Hey, how's about you call it quits with how much you owe club for tickets?" Because that season I went to Sheffield United got to semi-final at FA Cup, semi-final at League Cup, and playoff final.
You weren't playing,
so I were getting tickets in the hundreds and thousands, tickets for lads, cheap, selling them on. But again, while I'm at Sheffield United, I'm then like having this money for these tickets taken out my wages.
Right.
Because I know the guy in the ticket office. So he just did it on like, "Oh, we'll take out your wages each week or whatever, each month." So I was running up a massive bill, but I was then getting the cash off people and selling these things. So then I'm gambling with all this cash.
Yeah.
And then obviously getting into debt at the club. And I think it was around about 40 odd grand I owed club. And he just said, "How's about we call it quits?" And I just went, "No problem, thank you very much," and walked out.
That was it. That was you done at
Sheffield
Sheffield
United.
United.
Done at Sheffield United.
Were you gambling every day at Sheffield United?
Yeah.
From when you wake up to when you go to bed? Or
Sometimes I rang in training and didn't come in.
Wow.
So I went to bookies instead. Or as soon as I finished training, straight in a taxi, straight to bookies. And again, I was having those amounts of money. I had thousands, tens of thousands of pounds on me at the time. Because again, I was selling all these tickets. So in my wash bag, they'd come with a brown envelope and say, "Hey, give me 100 tickets." And I'd say, "No problem." Walk into the ticket office, set it lad, "Look, do me 100 tickets." He'd print me 100 tickets off, and I'd say, "Take money out of my wages," and I'd keep that cash.
Yeah.
So that way, I had that money at my disposal all the time.
I don't know if this skips ahead too far, but when was the first time when it kind of clicked and you were like, "Fuck, I need help now. This is getting out of control. I'm gambling every day." I guess then it was affecting your mood, your like behaviours and everything.
Probably when I tried to take my own life.
Was that after?
Around about 30-year-old, that, so it's a bit further on that line.
Was that after Gould?
That's after the goal incident, yeah.
Yeah. So we're just skipping. So you went from Sheffield United, you went to Kettering, then Halifax. Halifax, you were with Chris Wilder.
Chris Wilder, yeah.
He's a big Sheffield United fan as well, isn't he?
Yeah, he's the manager as well now.
Oh, is he back there now?
Yeah, he's back now, yeah.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
Oh,
so
okay.
so he's manager, yeah.
So you basically went down the non-league clubs, didn't you?
Worked my way back down, yeah. And then 24, 25, at Sporting Chance, they offered me a chance to go to West Ham and Portsmouth on trial. They arranged that for me, and I didn't turn up.
Wow.
Yeah. Why? Couldn't be asked.
Well, couldn't be asked. I was just scared. I was scared.
Because of the experiences you've had within
experience
professional
I had,
football.
and just I'd not played that level for a while. And again, not making sound decisions. Yeah. I was down at Sporting Chance, and it was the second time I went, and he just said, "Look, I was just kicking a ball on a piece of grass." at Champneys, by the way. That's where obviously it's at Champneys, so you get all this. And it's a surreal world. You know, you get the best treatment, you get fed well. You go to Champneys, you have all these health things and treatments and stuff, massages, whatever. And then at night you go to like a GA meeting, AA meeting, stuff like that. But you get took to a swanky restaurant and looked after like a superstar. But then when you get on train and come back to like Sheffield or your world, you fall back into the same stuff because again, it's not the real world.
Yeah.
So it's good what they're doing, and the support they give you and the treatment they give you is very good, but it's not realistic to me and where I'm from and my world. So you just fall back into the same stuff. So we're at Champneys, I was just kicking a ball with a couple of lads, and I went in the office after, and he just said, "Look, we think that you've got something to give back in professional football. You're still good enough, you're still young enough, everything like that. So what we're going to do is we're going to send you to Milton Keynes for a month at this like sports rehabilitation centre. You're going to get you mentally fit, physically fit, and then you're going to go on trial at West Ham for 2 weeks with Alan Kirbishley, and then you are going to go to Portsmouth with Tony Adams, with assistant manager with Harry Redknapp at the time, and then they're going to look at you for 2 weeks. So again, a chance to go back into the Premiership, 2 decent sized clubs and everything. So I said, yeah, no problem. Jumped on a train, went back home, was at home for a couple of weeks, fell back into the same stuff. And on the Sunday night, when I was due in at Milton Keynes on a Monday, they paid for my train ticket and everything. I went out in pub with lads and I was pissed. And all lads were like, "You're going there tomorrow, aren't you?" I'm like, "No, I'm not going." And I did go.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you regret that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Was that, again, would you say that's your fault, or is that being in with the wrong crowd and not being able to...
It is my fault, but again, I'm still deep in stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm still only like 24, 25. So that realisation or that identifying I've got a serious problem and then I can... Again, you can't do anything until you identify it. You can't move forward and work with it until you identify it and understand it.
And want the help.
Yeah, and I think over the years, that way I'm now at 40, is that I've understand myself, understand the situation I've been in. There is the end result. You know, I learn from the end result. I can see it happening. And I know the scenario, how it plays out. It's like I've watched that video I don't know how many times. So I know the end. So that's where I am. I wouldn't say it's any kind of certain treatment I've had. It's more realisation and getting maturer and older and a bit more wiser from my mistakes and all my experiences. Gamblers Anonymous weren't for me.
Yeah.
It has been for other people. And the 12 steps to recovery. And I mean, again, I went there when I was young, naive, not knowing what was happening in my life. But again, it's... I'd be lying if I turned around and said, yeah, this worked for me. No, it's just realisation and growing up.
Yeah.
And like I say, the situation I've been in, like being in prison, there was that switch to say, right, hold on, do I want to be in here?
Yeah.
Because that's where, and it's not the first time I've been in. I've been in like 3 other times as well for the same things, for violence and football violence and stuff. So it's like, what am I doing? What am I actually doing now? And I think for men, you do get to a point, and everyone says life starts at 40. And for me, it has. I'm living proof of that now because I'm a lot more quieter now. My life's not full of running around with football lads or getting up to stuff I got into or whatever. It's just living a normal life with missus and kids, working all hours, you know, and stuff like that. So yeah, it's kind of that maturity and having them responsibilities now. What I didn't have when I was younger, and I was just pissing everything up the wall kind of thing. So
yeah, and I can relate to the part about having children and that also shaping a different mindset.
Yeah.
So that's very similar to me as well. Are you happy going into a bit of information on the incident that happened at Gould that I believe was the number one talking point on Fox News at the time in America as well?
Yeah. Well, all of it went stupidly daft virally around the world.
So there was a viral video of you basically playing non-league for Gould?
Yeah. And I ran into the stand and tried to crack a few supporters who gave me a little
but
bit.
The video captured what it wanted to capture in terms of...
It only catches halfway through, It's, you don't see the build-up to it.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's why I just got branded at Newcastle, you know, mental... I think if you go on YouTube, it says mental goal captain and stuff like that. So, again, you don't see the build-up and what their role were and involvement were, these supporters, with all the abuse I had.
Were they your fans or the other
They're way
team?
supporters, so no, they're opponents' fans. Like, but again, I had to come on. I took so much stick on social media for it, and I was biting at the time, and I had to come off it because it was just like taking over. And then I had to go on a couple of news.
They were trying to get you on 5 Live that night, weren't they?
Robbie Savage were calling me out. Apparently, a couple of lads rung up and said, "Look, you need to ring 5 Live up because Bobby Savage is calling you. I wants to know what's gone off today." But I turned my phone off because it was just going mental. And then I put my phone on about 3 days later, and it was just all backlash on social media. I think I'd gone from like on Twitter at the time. I think I'd gone from like 500 followers or something like that to about 4,000 in like 3 days because everybody was just then following me. Yeah. And it was just getting out of hand. But then I had to go on a couple of news channels and give an interview and just say, look, this is the reason why. You know, you've not seen old video. I'm just a normal lad. I'm not playing professional football anymore. I'm playing semi-professional. I'm on £200 a week. Don't think give them the right to pay a tenner into the game and just abuse me like they have and hurdle abuse at me. So I kind of gave my point of view, which then I got a lot of good feedback from that, and kind of other people then like changed the perception of it and saying, well, fair play to you, because I'd have done exactly the same if somebody were like hurling that abuse at me and stuff. So yeah, but all that had a negative effect on me and my mental health and my gambling at the time, because like I say, gambling is my coping mechanism for my depression and vice versa.
So basically, to put that into context, whenever you're feeling like shit, you'll go on the roulette or you'll put a football bet on.
Yeah.
Is that because you've then got a buzz of potentially winning the money, or you just like gambling?
I think it's just taking me. It's addiction,
allowing you to concentrate on something else.
It's addiction, isn't it? Addiction.
Yeah.
People who are alcoholics drink to go to another world, you know. And the same with drugs. You don't want to be in reality. Your reality, you want to escape from. And I think my gambling is exactly the same. I was escaping from reality. So if I'm feeling shit or doing whatever, I gamble. That's my coping mechanism. That's my go-to. Yeah. Same again with the football violence. That become a coping mechanism. But then you put all this together, it's just one big mess and one big vicious circle, because there's no escape from it, kind of thing. Yeah. So,
and how long after the incident with Gull, where they were brandishing you the non-league cantonal, was
straight away?
Until because you tried to take your own life?
No, the thing is with the cantonal thing and the cantonal title is because it was 19 years to the day. Cantonal did that at Sellers Park.
What are the chances of that?
So it was exactly the same day.
So the press were always going to hammer that. So
straight away, that's how it got branded the new cantonal, and 19 years, like you couldn't write it basically. Yeah. So yeah, it were hard, and obviously at the time with my relationship, my gambling. So I had my first son around that time. We were only one. Again, struggling with that, with the upbringing I've had, struggling to be a dad, you know, owning up to it and being there and kind of doing what my dad used to do, go missing and stuff like that. Like again, learnt behaviour. So it were a really tough time for me then. And again, that switch in my head in regards to the suicidal thoughts and stuff was just I've had enough. And there was that switch, and then once that switch had gone, I knew what I was going to do. I knew this was the time to do it.
Sense of worthlessness comes with it.
Yeah, so there were no pre-planning. And I don't know, I can't talk for people who are not here who have actually gone through it, but I've never, when I've had suicidal thoughts, it's straight away, like there's a switch, what does it? Yeah. It's not, well, I'm going to kill myself a week on Tuesday once I've watched this or got rid of them, you know, done that episode of that series or whatever. It's straight away that switch in your head. And that's what happened with me. So I was living with my mate. I'd left my missus's house with my son around the goal time. After that, we're kicking all off. And I went to live with a mate who got a spare bedroom in his flat. So I was living there. And one morning, that was it. That switch had gone. He were in bedroom next to me. So it was like about 8 o'clock in the morning on a weekend. And I just got in the shower. But I got in the shower to like hide the fact that I broke down in the shower. But I went in the shower, turned the shower on because I knew he wouldn't hear me if I put the shower on. So I just broke down in the shower and I just, right, that's it. I can remember like just, kind of like headbutting wall because I knew in my head and this is it. And I come out, put a towel on and I walked past his bedroom and I went into the kitchen and I got like painkillers for my knee. So I had a knee injury at the time. Strong painkillers, antidepressants and paracetamols and everything like that. And I just got them all. And there were a bottle of vodka, which weren't mine because I don't drink vodka, in the fridge with my mates. And I just went and laid on settee and just took it all. Just chucked loads of pills in me and just started downing this bottle of vodka.
How old were you, Karl?
30. And that were it. That were me gone. I went out. And then my mate realised. My mate like got up a couple of minutes later, or 5 minutes later. But he said to me that he realised because I shut the kitchen door. We never used to shut kitchen door because it's a flat. It's like a fire door. So it's them thick, heavy ones. And so then that banged. So that he like woke him up a bit and thought, there's that kitchen door. And that was the thing. So he might not have found me till like hours later if he'd have been asleep. But that was the thing what alerted him, that kitchen door. And then he found me and obviously rang an ambulance and they carted me off to hospital and managed to sort me out.
And what's your next recollection of after that? Is it waking up in hospital and...
Yeah. The recollection is waking up in hospital and then nobody there. Not even my ex or anybody with you. And they were like, right, we'll pass you on to the crisis team. Which again, my experience with crisis team and things like my suicidal thoughts and stuff is just non-existent.
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah, it's not the best.
No.
Do you have similar?
Yeah, well, when I tried to overdose, and then they actually sent me away with like 12 diazepam. Just to, it's just bonkers, isn't it? I just don't know if they've got the training in it to be able to provide the right service, but it just wasn't useful at all. It was, are you a danger to yourself? And you obviously no, and they're like, okay, you can go.
Yeah,
and that's it.
Yeah.
So
there's no like ongoing care.
No.
And it's last few years it's same with doctors and stuff and GPs. You go and you talk and say, look, and then it's like, oh, I'll pass you on to this nurse. And then you might be waiting 8-9 weeks for a phone call off this nurse. And then they'll pass you on to somebody else and pass you on to somebody else. And it's like anything can happen in that time. Yeah. So
when you come back round in hospital, were you glad that you didn't? That I guess it didn't work.
Just felt numb.
Yeah.
Felt numb. I don't know. I'll be honest with you. I just felt numb. But then I just thought, well, can it get any worse? You know, where I am now, what's happened? I'm laid here on my own. Yeah. Again, you'd think me doing that would fetch people round, more support, or that, you know, gathering round me, rallying me up and stuff. And it didn't, really. And that's where I felt numb and I thought, you know, what's happening here? And then I fetched myself round a bit.
Can you remember the first conversation with your mum post trying to take your own life? Or with your dad?
Well, this is it. Again, experiences I've had. Because at 26, when my dad left my mum tried to take her own life. She took an overdose. She took the divorce bad. And I found her in the bathroom.
Jeez.
Again, I've seen it happen, and I know. My mum's. The thing is, depression is hereditary as well, because my mum suffered from depression for 40 odd years. She's been on medication, stuff that I never knew, and I can remember my mum used to go home from work and just go straight to bed, like 4 o'clock, 4:30, and then not rise till like 7, 7:30. But she'd just go in and get chuck covers already. I never thought no about it. I just thought she was tired from work, like when I was younger. But obviously now, she just wanted to go to bed and go to sleep for the next day to happen because she just couldn't cope. So again, learning about situations I've been in, looking back, and then educating myself on what's actually gone off and realising them. So yeah, I've never really had a conversation with Mum about it. I know she'd be able to relate to it massively, but she's come out at the other end now. She's fantastic. I'm sure she's still on medication. But she's in a new relationship and does everything she wants and seems happy, and she's got things to do with my kids and has a relationship and everything's good on her part like that.
Good.
So she's come through the other side of it, yeah.
And when you're having a bad day now, what's your kind of go-to thing to, you know, be able to pick yourself up?
Tomorrow's a new day. Just get through that day.
Yeah.
Because I think now with the positive stuff happening, it's like I said with the positive stuff I'm doing, if I go 2 days without hearing anything from anybody, or anybody on LinkedIn, or a reply from somebody I've messaged or emailed, it can send you the other way. You can think, oh, nobody's bothered, and it can like dulls you into depression a little bit. But suddenly when that message comes through, or a reply, or you get a connection on LinkedIn and stuff, it's a massive lift. And again, you just think, do you know what? Just get through today, because tomorrow you might have 10 replies and something might happen, or you might be asked to do this or do that, or you might be asked to go into a football club and do a tour or whatever.
Yeah.
So again, I just think to myself, just get through the day. Yeah. You'll be all right. Because again, I've been through 100 days where I hadn't felt all right.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So again, it's just self-taught, self-educating myself on certain ththings.
And where are you at with life now? So is your recovery journey underway? Do you still find yourself gambling here and there?
No, I have a little bit. But the thing is, it's not for... I only bet if I'm socialising.
Right.
So it's not back then when I used to gamble on my own and go on my own, and like lads would ring me, where are you? Don't matter. Or you coming out now? I'm not. Or
no
whatever.
interest.
Do you know what I mean? No interest in it, just personally me. So it's only certain people, certain friends, where they might say, "Oh, I'm sticking a football accumulator on, or whatever. Do you want to chuck a fiver in or whatever?" And I might do, but that's what. And I don't spend much time with them. It's like once every blue moon I see them.
Yeah.
They are from my gambling past, because they are my mates who grew up with me and gambled, and they've had troubles, well, financially as well with the gambling. And they're not, I don't ever put it on them, because I tried to once, like saying get help and, do something about it, whatever. And they're not interested. So I just leave them to their own device. That's not my problem.
Yeah.
I'm probably, it's look after me. And I know they're still struggling now, but they reach out to me and say, well done, how well you've done, and I'm doing stuff like this and talking about gambling. I'm hoping I'm having a good effect on them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? To come through the other side, because they've all got nice houses, they've all got decent jobs, they've all thingy, but that could be took away tomorrow.
Yeah.
And they know that. But are they ready to do something about it? They're not, in my eyes, basically. Yeah. And they'll know themselves when they want to do something about it. So again, it's kind of like counselling close friends, but you can only help somebody who wants to be helped. Yeah, and in that realisation wants to move forward with stuff.
I've got a couple of other questions, and I'll let you finish with your final one, mate. Gambling, sponsorship, and advertising now. So 3 out of 7 matches when 3 out of 7 adverts when a match is on is betting related. You got 10 out of 20 Premier League clubs this year with a gambling sponsor on the shirt. You'll see gambling logos on the boards around the ground 700 to 900 times per game. So it's, for me, the relationship between elite sport and gambling in this country is extremely unhealthy. I think if you look at the numbers with gambling-related harm and professional players, particularly within the academies, that number's increasing year on year.
Yeah.
What would your advice be to a young boy or girl that's within potential an academy or playing for an amateur club that may have started to face gambling harm? What would your advice be to them in terms of what they can do to try and get some support with that?
I think in a whole, the support has got to be whatever's going off in their life. Because again, my experience where I gambled because I needed to escape from what were going off and certain things. And I'm sure that's for everybody. I mean, I've got mates who have a bet, but it's never a problem. They never take it too far.
Yeah.
So again, if somebody is going to take it too far, they are escaping something. There's something what's going on. So basically, they need that support around where I can identify that, whether they're going past that line to problem gambling.
Yeah.
Because they are running away from something or escaping something. Mm-hmm. So again, it's all right giving advice to people, but again, people might not want your advice.
Yeah.
So it's for the people to sometimes identify like being around people who can identify where they're going.
Yeah.
And maybe they might not want help, but maybe put things in place to help them anyway.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because again, nobody knew what I were doing, but then they were nobody there to identify what we're doing or see the signs. And there were signs.
Yeah.
100% there were signs. But again, nobody were interested in doing anything like that.
Yeah, I think that's a really good answer, mate. It leads me perfectly into my last question. And a big thing I talk about when I go in and deliver my sessions is using my lived experience to make a younger student feel comfortable about opening up about their story if they've got an issue, or opening up about their problem, if they've got an issue. And I say within the session that, my biggest regret ain't losing 263 grand. It's not turning around to my mum at 18 when I lost 4.5 grand and thought, shit, I've got a bit of a problem here. But I was shit scared of the stigma that come with it. And I constantly tell myself, I'll sort it tomorrow. I won't bet tomorrow. So yeah, of course I'm pissed off I lost over £250,000, but I'm more pissed off I weren't able to approach my mum. And that's what I try and speak to these students about now. Not about whether it's gambling, whether it's addiction, whether it's something completely separate from drugs, gambling, alcohol. But if you've got a problem, talk about it because it's going to make it feel better. What would Karl Colley sat here in the studio now say to Karl Colley that we went to Newcastle for the first day? What would your advice be to your younger self?
It's hard. It's hard to give myself any advice because of the situation and the environment.
When the support's not there, it's
all right saying, well, would I have spoke to my mum or my dad? Probably not. But if I'd have spoke to somebody who were there who was saying, like, talking to me on a level about gambling and about what we're doing, then that's when you get people opening up about stuff.
Yeah.
There's got to be that person you think I can relate to.
Yeah.
Not, my dad would be able to relate to it, 100%, but would my dad be able to give me any advice on it? No. I mean, my dad's watched me put £1,000 in roulette machine and not even once stopped me because he probably wanted me to win so I could lend him some money.
Yeah.
Because that's what he used to do. Tap me all the time. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So how I look at it is that if these people, trained people, or people around a club who, like, say, lived experience, know what they're looking for, that's a positive thing as a football club. Because even if you don't get anybody and you can't identify anybody with a problem, then that's a success. But there's always going to be, stats are, there's always going to be people who have got a problem or struggle to do whatever.
Yeah.
But if you can identify that and go along with that journey with them, and then when they are ready, be there for them.
Yeah.
Because not, like I said, not everybody's going to accept that they've got a problem or wanting help. But to identify it and go along that ride with them and say, right, when it's about to get bad, I'm here to then, rescue you, kind of thing.
So you think there's something in that relatability piece, being able to relate to these younger people in these clubs, so they've got the confidence to maybe open up to these people if something does occur?
Yeah, because I know the scenario, I know the end game, I know what's going to happen because I've done it. I know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And like I say, it's I'm not naive about it. I know, and when I see it in other people, and I've seen it in my mates, and again, I'm not going to sit here and preach to them and say, look, you need to do this. I'm not going to tell anybody what to do. Yeah. But if they ever come to me, I'll say, yeah, I saw that years ago, mate. Oh, yeah, 100%. And I can help them. But they I know that they'll watch this and they'll hear me on other stuff. When they're ready, they'll come to me and say, can you help me with it? Or what have you done to do this? And I will help them. Yeah. And it's same anything. You've got to have that
want.
Yeah,
to do
yeah. And you've got to have that option there. Without you knowing, there's got to be that option there for a safe space, for somebody who can relate to it, and somebody who can help you. Yeah. And that were non-existent in football back then. Non-existent whatsoever. And that was the thing is, who do I tell? And when I do tell them, what are they going to think of me? Yeah. Because of the stigma around being a gambler. Yeah. Is when people used to talk about, people don't they go, oh, he's a gambler. And they pull a face. Because they know what comes with gambling. Yeah. Pissing all your money up all. Losing everything. Yeah. Borrowing money off people. Owing people money. You know, it's that stigma, it. Yeah. So straight away, people turn their nose up at it and see you in a different light. But there should be somebody who can, you know that you can talk to and relate to it and then help you.
Appreciate that, mate. I'll let you finish with your last question.
Oh, cheers. So many ups and downs of obviously your career and your personal life. You've obviously got through them all, and now you're kind of out helping others, spreading the message, speaking, being open about your story. Do you sit here today feeling proud of what you've done, like where you are, or if not, where do you kind of feel like you need to get to be proud of yourself?
I'm getting there. I'm getting there to be proud of myself and doing things like this. And the big thing for me is, and you'll be able to relate to yourself, is me actually coming here today. Yeah. Turning up to the Lad podcast, doing stuff, going down to the player welfare course, turning up, doing it. Because there's so many things I haven't done. Yeah. There's so many things I've got opportunities to do and trials and stuff and, like I said, turning up at places. And I've never done it because I've just found an excuse not to. But it's actually coming here today and doing stuff. So everything what's get put in front of me now, tasks and stuff I've not feel comfortable with, especially the player welfare course, meeting 20 new people down in London and doing stuff like that, were daunting for me. Getting the train down were daunting. And then when I was there and I did it, I did give myself a pat up back and say, like, you know what I mean, well done.
Yeah.
And I look at myself now and think, well done for doing it, because any daunting thoughts would put me off, and it's just when you live with depression and stuff like that, it's easy just to say no, I'll not do it.
Yeah.
And think, oh fuck it, no, I'm all right. And that's the easy way. Now I'm doing things what don't make me feel uncomfortable. I am talking about uncomfortable things, but it gets easier. It gets easier doing these things now.
Yeah.
So, world's my oyster now. More things what come in, more opportunities I get, I'm open to that. Actually going to do it, because I know again how I'm going to feel after the highs of it. Because there's nothing worse than saying, well, I should have done this, I should have done that, because that's all I've done for the last 20 years of my life. I should have done this, I should have done that. So again, changing my vocabulary, changing the way I talk, I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
You know, I am doing it.
Yeah.
You know, now. So again, so the way I am now is more positive and self-positive thoughts. So you still need people around you to give you feedback and encourage you. But I'm learning more to do it myself.
Yeah, because I think for my past as well, it's one of the hardest things for me to do is to actually be proud of yourself. Is that something that you struggle with as well?
Yeah, because of the resentment, the self-loathing and resentment for 20 years of your life. It's hard to break it. It's hard to then turn it around and go, I like myself now. You know, look yourself in the mirror and think, yeah, you're doing well. It's hard, but I'm getting there. I am getting there, yeah.
Nice. Cheers, Karl.
Thank you very much for coming on. Thank you for being the last guest on our in season 1 of Against the Pods. I'm buzzing to have you in the studio.
Yeah.
I would love to have had you for another 4 or 5 hours, mate, and gone through other stories and bits and bobs, but I'm sure we'll probably reconnect in the space, seeing as we're both in the same similar space and in terms of what we're doing and the outcomes we're trying to achieve. Thank you to everyone that's listened to season 1. We hope to be back with season 2 potentially at some point in the new year. Massive thanks to Karl for joining us.
Cheers, Karl.
Thank you very much, and we'll see everybody soon.